Welcome to the Aliens Love Earth podcast, where we heal the Earth with art. I'm your host, Jasper Hermes, and today we have a special guest, Lucid Letters, a multi-genre singer, songwriter, and producer who has a strong opinion on the way we connect with each other and expresses that through various forms of musical expression. Join us for a chat about the dark side of social media, how to create and release what you really love to make, Planet Earth, and of course, Lucid Letters' boundary-breaking music. I'm really excited to have a talk with someone that's so sonically versatile, so please welcome to the show, Lucid Letters. Thank you so much for being up for a chat. How is it going?
It's good. It's lovely weather in England today, so I've had to draw my curtains, so I'm not a halo or whatever. Yeah, I'm excited to talk with you.
Nice. Yeah, I'm also really excited to hear about your musical journey and how your creative story kind of developed, but also about the bold choice that you make to leave platforms like Instagram and Facebook. I guess you have good reasons for that, and I would love to hear it. Especially also how you're then trying to connect with your audience elsewhere, as I feel that that's something that's also interesting maybe to other artists that might be checking this. Curious to hear about your care for Planet Earth. I see your beautiful plant there, which I really appreciate. Curious how that influences your art maybe sometimes. But I'm also curious for one question that I always ask, and that is, how would you describe what you do creatively or artistically yourself?
I suppose I'm a musician first and foremost, but then I also really enjoy making what happens around the music. So I've been editing my own video, doing my own photography, doing my own graphic design for pretty much as long as I've been seriously doing the music. I feel like I was more of a visual artist growing up. I have some education in art and music, but it seemed as though I was more talented in the drawing and stuff. But I had this, I think when you feel like you need to get better at something, sometimes it can be more of a pull towards it. So I felt like I wanted to say so much more with music, but I didn't have the skill to do it yet. And I think that's what drove me in that direction. But I still have a basis in the visual arts. So, for example, I actually had my first ever official photo shoot with a photographer a couple of weeks ago, because before I would just do it all myself. But now I feel like I can communicate a vision to another professional and hire them. And I think if it wasn't for that grounding in visual art, drawing, painting, I'd have a lot less scope for making a vision my own than I would have done otherwise. I've been playing an instrument since I was 5 years old, singing before then. But really, I haven't really gotten good at any one single instrument. It's more of a case of, can I make a song with this? I need to get good enough to make a song with it. And then I just lose interest because I've done what I wanted to do. And now I'm kind of teaching myself the laptop. I'm teaching myself audio production and to some degree audio mastering, because that's what it takes to make a song. It's always about making the song. For me, that's my North Star, if you like.
That's really interesting. How did music, because I hear at one side that music was there already from a really young age then, the instruments from 5 and singing before already. But then you choose an education into visual. Would you say that it comes in waves then? Or did you do a lot of visual and wanted to expand on that you now look into the production? Or how did that work?
I think as a younger person, I just had so much creative energy that I wanted to try any discipline at all. It was all interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I've made patchwork quilts. I've made scrapbooks and journals and things. I think it was a case of not really having any direction, just wanting to make stuff for a really long time. And then slowly realizing that the thing that drives me most is that I want to be able to say something with a song that either hasn't been said before or just hasn't been said in my way before. So it really, I suppose the heart of it is wanting to be heard. And like I say, I was singing from a young age because that was the environment I was in. My my family kind of parrot little jokes to each other in song form. Like if somebody says something that happens to be a line of a song, someone else will sing it. um, so I had that kind of singing as communication from quite a young age. And I was also raised in church where there was quite a lot of focus on the music. So I came up kind of singing in choirs, singing at the front of church. So that was my early live music experience. Um,
Mm,
but it's important to note that it's not about sort of being virtuosic or whatever. It's about, again, singing as communication. It was about um, the collaborative effort of singing to worship God.
mm,
So it wasn't really about being a good singer. It was just being a singer that could lead a group of people in that way. And I
mm,
had to kind of come to terms with that over time where I'm like, well, maybe I do actually want to be on stage to be an entertainer and not just to be a singer to help other people sing along. So
mm,
I had to make a decision a few years ago where I said, I'm going to step down from doing that because I want to pursue making my own songs in that way. Um, so I suppose it's always been in my environment to sing and
mm,
to communicate with song.
mm. And you say like the decision came like a few years ago. Was it then because you call it a decision, like a really conscious moment or happening that made you go in the direction of, yeah, I'm going for it, so to say, or?
Yeah, I think when we had the early lockdowns in spring of 2020, all the churches shut. Nobody was going to church. They ended up making like a video link thing and going live to do church. And that gave me enough time to just think, hang on, I've been doing this because it's essentially it's like volunteer work. You're volunteering on behalf of your community to do a thing to help the wider
Mm,
community. And then I had to think, hang on, now that I'm not doing it anymore, I feel like I need to do something more with my expression. Um,
mm,
and so that's when the ball started to roll. And then a couple of years ago, I actually spoke to the people in charge of the music and said, I'm not doing this anymore. I've been doing it
right.
on and off for 18 years. I think I've put enough hours in. Let's have other people contribute. I tried a
Mm,
few different ways because I thought I'm not really enjoying this, but maybe if I only did the singing, maybe if I only did it once a month, trying to reason with it. But then in the end, my heart was telling me, you've done that and you've helped a lot of people and maybe they
mm,
enjoy hearing you sing, but truthfully, you want to be an artist, and that was what I really wanted.
mm,
So, and it's hard to disappoint people, and so
mm,
people can end up making up a story about what they think has happened, but really it was just my own choice. It wasn't any bad blood, and I've been happier for it. And occasionally people will ask me, when are you going to sing at the front again? I'm like, well, I don't know. I have to kind of
mm.
gently say, no, I'm not doing that now. And I've seen other people step up now that wouldn't
Okay.
necessarily have done so if I'd been in the way. And I felt like I am being in the way of people who would be so much happier doing this than I am. So I'm going to get out of their way. And
So you
getting,
do yourself a pleasure with that, but also give someone else the
yeah,
opportunity that
it
they
can be
might be looking
common.
for.
Yeah, in church environments, it can be common for a few select people to be doing a lot of the work uh, because they think no one wants to help, but maybe if they eased off a bit, somebody else would come in and fill the gap. That's how it should be, I think, because
Yeah.
I'm not very young anymore. People, there are teenagers in church now that want to do singing at the front, and if I was there all the time, they'd have less opportunity to do that. So it's I've had my turn, and I'm ready to
Yeah.
do something else now.
Yeah. That's, yeah, sounds like a beautiful organic development in that sense as well. I can imagine that what you say is basically also like following intuition and feeling, which is, at least for me, but I speak to more people about it, like quite a challenging thing. Also within creative communities, I feel that that's quite often difficult because, as you mentioned, you have a lot of things that you find interesting to do. Uh, but also on like the move that you mentioned away from like some social platforms, that's also based on a feeling. Do you have a way that you recognize if you have to trust your feeling in a case, or do you just can you just always trust on your feeling, or is there? I guess that's also learning how to read your feelings a bit. How is that for you?
Yeah, it's been a struggle especially when you're afraid to disappoint people that you care about, or even just disappoint anyone. You can end up really kind of crushing down your intuition, but eventually it's going to come out, it's going to pop up. And I think many people during the harder times in lockdown were, assessing how they really felt about things. And it came up to the front very quickly for me, like, I need to make some changes here. But in the case of moving away from the major social media platforms, which I'm still in the process of, I'm not doing it kind of cold turkey. Like, I need to, let people know that's what I'm doing. I want to be able to stay in contact with the people that I found there. It was much more about, yes, I was having a negative feeling around it, and it was wasting a lot of my time and taking away from my ability to make the things I wanted to make. Yes, those were true, but also the larger landscape of it's becoming less and less of a safe place for the kinds of communities I care about. It's
Mm.
becoming more and more politicized and become more of a tool for propaganda of all kinds.
Yeah,
Uh, and then when there was the fiasco of people being forcibly followed to political accounts they had no contact with before,
that was really wild. Yeah,
in the case of Instagram, I
yeah,
was like, I don't think it's good for me to be here anymore. I don't like
yeah,
feeling like I have to work for this company and then not get anything in return. It's
yeah,
become very pay to play. If you don't run ads, you can't get much traffic from outside of your little community. And even your little community isn't going to see what you're doing. And that's for many reasons. Some are kind of necessary because there are so many users and so much content. There has to be a way of sorting it for people. But equally, it feels like it never seems to be in my favor. So why
yeah.
stay if I can't get something reciprocal in that instance? And I found since not posting as often, I'm just really enjoying making things on my own that nobody can see, or I'll share it with
Mm.
somebody I know and they're like, wow, that's cool. And that's more interaction than I'd have if I'd paid for an ad, for example. So if
Yeah,
it's getting so bad that you can just get more by not being on there, then it's time to move on.
yeah, yeah. I get what you're saying. What ways of connecting with people do you find more valuable? Like what you now say is I then share it with someone, which is like more like in person, or maybe send it over to someone, which is like quite one on one. Is that something if you say like I really want to pursue like releasing my art and sharing it with more people, is that a way that's sustainable, or are there other ways that you try to reach people with your music now then?
Um, at the moment, because I'm working on an album and I can't share too much about it, so I'm sharing just within my own friendship group. Um,
Yeah.
about what I'm planning, and or I'll say to you, what do you think of this idea? So I'm in that kind of cocoon stage of
Mm,
only having quite a small circle of people with that. But I mean, the answer is I don't really know how I'm going to access listeners or talk to my fans um, outside of the platforms because it's been so long since I've had to do that. I do have an email mailing list. I do have a website. I do have all these alternate ways to contact me. Um,
mm,
but I don't know for sure if it's going to work. I don't know for sure if people are going to follow me where I'm going. I will still have a YouTube channel. I think that's probably the main platform that I'll still be updating to. So it's really scary because
mm,
I kind of stagnated in terms of growth in the last couple of years, and then it makes you feel like, oh, if I move, will I have even less? But
mm,
it how much worse does it have to be?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to say, well, I can see the trajectory here. It's only going to get worse. So why not do my own thing? Why not move somewhere that I'm happier? Because then I might find people who want to stick around, or maybe everyone will follow me and it'll be fine. I don't know, but I'm willing to take the risk.
Yeah. I gotta say, I got a lot of respect for it because it's basically saying, I have no idea how this is going down, but it feels better and it feels like the right thing. And I find that I find that a very beautiful thing. I think, especially in social media landscapes, there's a lot of things that are just done because people think that's how things are supposed to go on there. And that's normal to do, or also like that a lot of artists think, oh, I need to be on TikTok if I want to take myself serious as an artist, which is very sad, I think, but understandable, seeing the amount of group pressure around it, but also it seems so normal. So just want to say respect for making that decision, and also for listening to yourself, even though you don't know if that's gonna work out,
Yeah.
so to say. Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
that's it. Yeah, that takes
I think
courage. Yeah.
one of the things that plays in my favor is that I am a little bit older than most of the content creators about right now. So I remember a time before Instagram. I remember a time before MySpace. Like the first songs I ever uploaded were to a website called SoundClick, not SoundCloud,
Mm.
SoundClick. And that was in 2005. So I've been doing this 20 years. So you'd think after 20 years I'd have like an amazing big following, but I don't. Partly
Yeah.
because I've allowed myself to be kind of sucked into this. Oh, it's almost like playing the lottery. Like maybe this next piece of content will be it. Or, oh, I followed all the rules of how to get people to engage, but it didn't do very well.
Mm.
And it's like you say, people are like, I need to have these platforms to be considered an artist. And I think that
Mm.
the definition of music artist now is so much more. There's just so much more to do. You can't just do the audio. You can't just do the video. You have to do the video in a really specific way that will make people laugh and entertain them and educate them and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't consider myself a teacher or a music educator, but it's like I'm expected to be, or I'm expected to be a comedian. I'm expected to be all these things
Yeah.
before I'm allowed to do the music. And I don't
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. No, I get that. I also don't believe that is. I think there is ways to adjust it into a way that it fits with you, that you feel like okay with it. I'm very interested in the topic because I also I'm I'm educated as a digital marketeer, and I worked also in the music industry for a while, and I saw how it worked for big accounts and for smaller accounts. But I have my question marks with it as well, so that's also why the topic interests me, and I think it's a very interesting quest to see how that works for to bring it back to the art, but still get an audience. As said, like keep me updated because I'm I'm genuinely
Yeah.
interested in how this goes down. And I got a lot of respect for it. As said, yeah. Um, I'm curious then for one of the track titles from one of the tracks that you sent on Chaos Era. Is that in
Yeah.
some way connected to this topic or not really?
It actually really is.
Yeah.
I found myself getting frustrated with not having released any music because I was
Mm.
worried, like, oh, but what if it's not optimal? What if it's not the optimal strategy to put this song out or that song out? And then I was talking to myself, like, why don't you just put all the songs out chaotically? Um, and while I didn't end up doing that exactly, it did kind of set me on the path of why don't I make an album
Mm.
like around this particular sonic palette I was working with 10 years ago. It started with these little sort of experiment tracks I was making at a time when I didn't have any kind of setup, like I couldn't record audio. So whereas I'd usually record my guitar, record my voice, maybe add some other things, I was depending purely on what I could make in my computer without the proper software and without really any guidance. But I was making these little beats,
Mm.
and so this album is basically using those little beats as a basis and then constructing them into proper songs. Um, so Chaos Era is the title track. It's the first track.
Cool.
And it kind of talks about one of the lyrics is reaching to myself from across the decade. So in 2014, I was making these little sketches, and then in 2024, I was working on them into full songs. Um,
Oh,
so it's like talking to my past self in the narrative of it as well.
it's cool then that you also still now get ideas from what happened then. I mean, it happens more often with artists that they have a track and that it lays on the shelf for a while and then you grab it back from the shelf and work on it. But um, yeah, that you still feel the inspiration from it. Yeah, that's cool. Um, I gotta say, like, I'm curious how you would describe it if you want to put a like a label or a genre on it, because I find it very difficult and not working because like the tracks that I listen from you are a combination of different genres and vibes and energies. I tried to put something on it and I think I came on experimental poppy electro disco feel, but that's a lot
Yeah.
of things. How would you describe it as
Well,
a sound
I
maybe?
fell in love with electronic music, over the last couple of decades, and always wanted to try all these new sounds. And as I've got good software and good equipment, I can learn about things like synthesis. I can learn about, um, the harmonic series and all these things that contribute to these really cool sounds that I've heard in recordings over the years. So I end up just using it all because it's
So
whatever brings me joy in these genres. I put it in. So maybe it's got a little bit of a house vibe, but then it's also got some very crunchy textural bed kind of sounds in there. And
yeah,
many of these crunchier sounds are from those original experiments I was doing. So yeah, there's experimental, but then it's got this kind of. It's also very pop.
yeah,
It's got a sung poppy lyric, and it's got kind of a sassy energy as well.
yeah.
So I think you described it as well as I could.
Cool. I would say let's just have a listen to it, and anyone listening or watching also has an idea about what you actually make musically. I think that's a cool thing. So I'm just gonna put it on, and yeah, love to hear a bit more about it after.
Reaching to myself from across the decade. Do you hear that? Greeting my past self and all the things she made. Can you feel that? Drop after drop after drop after drop. Now that I started, I don't wanna stop. Leave it to me to deliver a bop. Let us set down the lucid on top. Profit on profit on profit and loss. Save me the labor, I'm done with the dross. Give me the glitz and the glam and the gloss. I'm here for chaos, I'm clear for chaos. Oh. Listen close now, come a little nearer. I'm in the chaos era. Look at me, could it be any clearer? I'm in the chaos era. Listen close now, come a little nearer. I'm in the chaos era. Look at me, could it be any clearer? I'm in the chaos era. Drop after drop after drop after drop. Now that I started, I don't wanna stop. Leave it to me to deliver a bop. Let us set down and lucid on top. Profit and profit and profit and loss. Save me the labor, I'm done with the dross. Give me the glitz and the glam and the gloss. I'm here for chaos, I'm here for chaos. Oh, reaching to myself from across the decade. Do you hear that? In the chaos era.
Chaos era. Yeah, I'm curious. How does this shape if you have like a beat or elements that are made 10 years ago, and now do you did you just grab it out of the shelf and start working on it again, or did you have an idea that you thought I'll fit it together? How does it work if you go and sit down to make a song, kinda?
Yeah, I think in the case of the songs on this album, it's all I would find my old project files with. I used to. There will be people out there, music producers, who will cringe when I say this. I used to use something called Audacity, which is
Mm,
technically a multi-track recording program, but it is not
Audacity.
designed for music production at the level that I wanted to be able to make things at. But at the
Mm,
time, I didn't have much in the way of funds, so I was making songs with Audacity and like a string of other free programs and free samples and things. So I had these Audacity files with all the tracks intact. So I'd bounce those out into WAV and then load them into Ableton and then start constructing a full song out of them. Because these sketches were like usually no longer than a minute and didn't have like any kind of song structure. So I'd make some kind of a shape of like 2 to 3 minutes long. And then at the moment, I tend to write lyrics when I'm doing something else, when I'm out and about. I'll think, oh, this line, or oh, this melody. And then also when I was talking about my frustrations of feeling like I needed to strategize everything, um, I tend to kind of break out more into rap lyric because I have a lot to say in a short space
mm,
of time. So I started talking about how I wanted to make drop after drop. Like that's how I wanted to share my songs, to just like get them out there because I have so many unfinished songs. Um,
mm,
yeah, so it's a case of, it's very much at the moment in this kind of period of my life creatively, it's very much jigsaw puzzles from all kinds of areas of my life and my past experiences
mm,
to make something cohesive, to make me kind of feel like I'm progressing, like I'm moving on from that. I've fixed it all together and now that's a thing, and now I can go for the next thing. So this album's
mm.
very much like a spring clean of a lot of old ideas, and then perhaps the next thing I do will be something very different.
All right. All right. And I hear you say that that most of your lyrics come when you were actually not at all working on music. Like
Yeah.
a bit the good ideas come in the shower kind of thing then, when you're not occupied with music at all, that it then
Yeah, very
plops
much
in.
so. In the past, I would sit down with an instrument and write and then come up with the lyrics because I'd get into a space of, I'm feeling a feeling and I'm going to kind of expand that and kind of put a microscope on it, and then distill a song out of that until it's out on the page. But now I feel like I don't need to do that in the same way. Like I've found other ways of dealing with feelings, and then I can give a more refined example of what I'm feeling in the songwriting because I'm allowing it to come to me in pieces rather than trying
Mm,
to force yourself to stop feeling something,
mm,
to just allow things to flow more. And maybe I'll have an idea to change one word or a couple of words in a song, and then it's like, now it works. So just letting it come to me more than kind of forcing everything, which is how, as a younger person, I was very much like force it to be right. But
mm,
now I'm kind of letting it be right in its own time.
mm. And do you feel a difference in how you feel about your work then with this approach?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to feel like, I am very much a perfectionist and I don't think I'll ever really lose that. But it used to be so debilitating, where I just think everything I did wasn't good enough.
Mm,
And but then I'll go back and hear those things and think, I don't even remember writing that, but it's great. So
yeah.
I think to myself, well, if I'm feeling that way about a song now, like I don't like it, maybe that's just because I'm too close to it right now. And maybe in the future I'll think it's great. So I'll just pretend the future me is listening to it and likes it, because then
Yeah.
that allows you to keep working and finish instead of getting caught up in all the little details that maybe don't matter. And I found one guaranteed way to get me to move on from a song is if I show my daughter, she's 10,
Yeah.
and if I show it to her and she says, "Oh yeah, I really like this, or I like that," or she does a little dance, she's not going to tell me, "Oh, your breath noises are too loud in verse 2." She's never going to say that. So if she
Hmm.
thinks it's together, then it's probably okay. But I've seen other things where she thinks, "I like it, but it doesn't sound right." Because she's got quite a good ear really for things like production.
Mm,
So I'm like, "Oh, you're right. Actually, that isn't right yet." She knows So maybe I can trust her quite a lot to tell me if it's like good enough for most people to hear. Um, so that's my little cheat code. If you have a child that you talk to, a family member, show them your song, and if they like it, maybe it's got something.
Yeah, that's a good tip. A tip. I'm writing that down for myself as well. Yeah. Or maybe in general, like anyone that is not like trained or, learning to listen to technical sides of music. I feel ever since I started looking into music production a little bit, when I and DJing as well. Then when I went to a festival and I came there, you start hearing everything. You hear, oh, this thing on the mix table, like where's the EQ, and where's, oh, that little mistake. Yeah. Once you start getting, I experienced that with playing guitar as well, that it became too much of a mindset of, oh yeah, I need to do it all right. I want to be, doing this for a living and I want to be better at it. Then it becomes more a technical pursuit than enjoying the process of actually expressing yourself, or even without any thoughts, just the joy that you can feel if you're working on or playing an instrument or working on music. And yeah, I think that's a big loss. Yeah. Because then
Yeah,
it loses kind of the essence of what you started it for and why you like doing it as well. Yeah.
that's absolutely what I'm trying to get back is the joy of making it. So that kind of flows into everything I've said so far. Is that I had to move away from church music because I wasn't finding any joy in it anymore. I'm moving away from a lot of platforms because I'm not finding the joy anymore. And then doing this weird music because it's what I feel needs to be out in the world. Um,
Mm.
so I think that's a really powerful motivator if you can if you can protect the joy you feel while making a thing and not allowing all the things you mentioned, the technical side or
Yeah.
what are other technical people going to think. Um,
Yeah.
those things are important because you can really elevate a song if you can get the technical sides right. But just to protect that core of why do I like doing this? What is it about me as a person that is has found a passion in here? Yeah, so I agree with you there.
Yeah. Do you have any like ways for yourself to, if you feel like you're too much in a, how do you say it, like a template kind of way of thinking, like, oh, I'm just checking boxes. Do you have any fun ways maybe to get yourself out of that, like, how do you say it?
Out
Yeah.
of a rut, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, I live very close to the beach, like a 10-minute walk away. So I love to go out on there and collect little rocks and look at the seabirds. It really kind of, especially when you look out at the sea and there's the horizon and there's water beyond what you can see, just having something so large scale around you makes you think, why am I worried about the frequencies in this instrument? The sea is literally here. So that can often, improve your perspective when you just think, actually, I'm just a very small part of a very large thing. And that's wonderful. And I'm just a little guy making my little songs. And when I can kind of make it feel like I'm being cute, I'm so cutely making songs. It takes the pressure off and it stops you taking yourself a bit too seriously. While paradoxically, it makes you better at your craft, even though you're not being as serious. And then obviously, as I mentioned, my little girl will always get me out of that headspace because
Mm.
she just wants to play. She just wants a hug.
Mm.
She wants to tell me about something that she thinks is fun. Um, and then as well, I mean, I've gotten into weightlifting the last couple of years, and there's something very meditative about having something heavy enough to possibly hurt you. You've got to
Yeah.
concentrate on that. Um, everything about perfectionism isn't relevant to lifting a heavy thing. You've just got to do it right and not hurt yourself. So it kind of forces you out of the thinking too hard and just doing it and being in the practice of doing it. So all of those things have really helped me, definitely.
Cool. Cool. It's interesting that you mentioned going to the beach and like looking at little rocks and stuff, because one of the things that I was wondering is like if nature in any way ever inspired your work as well, but it sounds like it does.
Yeah, it does in a practical way of, helping me regulate my mood or making me feel better. But then also I tend to come up with a lot of imagery about space and about stars and um I wrote a song once about kind of singing as though I was a black hole and I was trying to tempt this astronaut to come and fall into me, but it was also a metaphor for love. So,
Yeah.
um, like these really grand ideas, like big Mother Nature type ideas, end up in my lyrics sometimes because sometimes I feel like my emotions are very, very vast, and I don't always know how to deal with them. So sometimes you'll get a very big lyric about some cosmic natural phenomena. Um,
Mm.
I'm not trying to be kind of like um, I'm not boasting or whatever. It's just that sometimes I feel something so intensely that I need an imagery that's that big to kind of express that.
To make like the feelings that you feel are so big that you make something that's even bigger to make it feel relatively smaller, kinda.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
In a similar vein to talking about seeing the sea and realizing I'm not that big. So maybe my emotions could potentially be manageable because there's a supernova going on somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Literally. Yeah. Like if you think about, yeah, we had that last night. Like we saw the stars, and it was like, oh yeah, just imagine that every star is a sun, and how vast this is. Like, and then we can make us so much. We can have so much worries about like things that we made important. Yeah, it makes you question, like, what is then really important? And yeah, if I'm just an ant, basically, in a very big ant pile, then you know, yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm also curious for another track, which is a remix. It's called Center of the Universe, very fitting with this whole middle of nowhere. I saw it was a remix you did for Lauka. How did it came about? Did you find the song somewhere? Did they reach out? How did the process go that you made a remix for?
I've been following Lalka since 2020 because I went on a little hashtag dive. Like I was looking for women producers, female producers, like
Mm,
people that I could use to inspire myself. And I really loved. She's got this amazing fashion sense and a really keen eye for visuals and for photography, that kind of thing. So I was really inspired by that, and I've followed her for quite some time and would comment a lot on everything she was doing. Um, and eventually we kind of struck up a bit of a kind of a colleague friendship type thing. But then last year, her manager messaged me on Instagram and said, "Hey, would you like to remix one of Larka's new songs for her upcoming EP?" And I was like, "Yes,
nice.
I would like that. I've been noticed."
Yes, please.
um, and so they sent me the folder with all the tracks that would be on the EP, and I was really drawn to this one called "Center of the Universe." And I don't know if you've heard the original, but it's quite minimal. It's quite sparse. There's some really interesting sounds throughout, but it's quite bold in its production. Um, but there was this one section that was very lush and very full, where she sings the line, excuse me, about I used to think the center of the universe was you, but it was me all along. And I thought that really speaks to me because for such a long time I felt like everybody else's stuff was of paramount importance, and whatever was going on with me, I could maybe deal with that later. But we are
Mm,
all our own little universes. We have a vastness internally as well as the
mm,
vastness of the outer universe. And maybe, it would be right to be your own center some of the time, or to come back to the center that is you. And I was like, I really like that idea of kind of reclaiming yourself. Um, and I just loved that section because it's got these lovely synth pad sounds, and the movement in the bass and the piano is really, really pretty. Like she has quite a lot of a classical background, so there was some of that showing up there. And I thought, I
mm.
want that. That's perfect. And then I'm going to just do loads of other stuff outside of it. So when she got the remix back, she was like, there's just so much in here. It's gone from very minimal to, she described it as maximalist. And I guess, yeah, quite a lot of my production is that way. Even when I'm trying to reduce the number of elements, and I'm like, oh yeah, but maybe if we have more texture, maybe sometime in the distant future, I'll make something minimalist. But right now, I'm very much adding things, and I wanted like a huge bass with like a halftime feel. And I got some really good advice from a manager about how to mix the bass and change it so it wasn't so. He said it sounded like it was in a tunnel, so maybe I'd just compressed it badly. But then I sent him another version. He was like, "Oh yeah, that's great." And I'm like, "I don't know what I did, but it's worked." Yeah, so it's quite a long one as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But I like that as well because I feel like back in the that sounds old. Back in the days, like 10 years ago, a song could easily be like even for radio play 5.5 minutes. Like if it if it was good and if it kept your attention and if it was a story that you went through, then it was fine. And now I feel like a lot needs to be short. But I don't think that's needed indeed. And I think at the end of the episode, we have a track that I would say is quite minimalist for your production style. Like you sent the Stardust piano version, but I'll come back to that later.
Okay.
I'm curious. I want to listen to Center of the Universe, to the remix. I'm just curious if you have like one part that people can keep their ears open for. What would it be? Is there a hidden gem, or is there a part that you really like in the song?
In the remix. Yeah. There's a part where I've kind of, I took Lorca's lyrics and then moved them around and made like a new lyric. And there are parts where I've made her say a word she didn't say, but it's not very clear. So I recorded my own vocal underneath and tried to match her accent a little bit. So there's a part where it's used to think you were the one, but I was mine all along, center of the universe. So that's an extra bit that wasn't in the song before.
Well, I'll try to hear it and see if I can find it as well. Let's have a listen. Yes. It's really cool. I really enjoy it. It's it reminds me a little bit of like this Skrillex type of vocal chopping, but also how Skrillex like often uses the synthesizers in the calmer moments, like creates this very small magical atmosphere, and then it just comes over very bold after. Yeah, I find it really cool. Yeah, I'm curious. What was there something that was really challenging for you in this track to get right?
So much
Yeah.
because there was a lot to balance.
Mm,
And I had to give it over to a mastering engineer who had like some specific parameters. So I was like trying to make sure nothing like went louder than a certain spot.
mm,
Um, like there's a part just before the last drop that's a bit more classical. Da, 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 something like that. And that bit always used to take up so much space and I didn't know what was going on. And eventually I got it to work. And I just like, I almost cried with relief when I got it to work. So I find that every single time I make a piece of music, I've got a new challenge I've never fixed before.
mm,
And then when I've done it, I'm like, oh, that wasn't so bad. But in the moment, it's like, this is awful and I can't do it.
mm,
And like I said, I did have quite a lot of help from Larka's manager because he also makes his own music and he's a DJ as well. Um,
mm,
and he actually used Skrillex as a reference for like
mm,
how to make your bass and drums work. Um,
mm.
so I was listening to some of the tracks he'd shown me, trying to like get some idea of how to fix it. And it worked out in the end.
Uh, that's cool. How did you find it to work with like is it the first one that where you really do a remix of like someone with management and those kind of things? Because you said like you showed a bit like, oh yes, please, like when they said for the
It was
remix.
my first officially commissioned remix where I had to sign a contract and I had to like
Yeah.
I was like looking into like what do these terms in the contract mean and, and that kind of thing. So it was quite exciting in that way. Um, and yeah, to be given like all of her stems for all the separate instruments and getting to hear a bit about like, oh, this is how she does it. Oh, that's
Mm,
interesting. And I was quite nosy, really, like looking through some of the things. Like, there's a little bit of like a whispered speech thing at the very end, and that was like a sped up and reversed sample in one of the vocals. And I think she's saying the words "girl ferocious." I could be wrong, but it sounded like a really cool way to end it. So that's what's in there.
that's really cool. Yeah. How did you feel that it influenced your production when it's like officially commissioned and with an artist you look up to, or it's like a new step? How do you feel that influenced your production skills and quality and those kind of things?
I think I had to feel like I was stepping up to the challenge
Yeah.
because it was a harder, more moving parts kind of an arrangement than I'd probably done before. Um, but I think the thing that's helped me is that she's the kind of person that will say, no, you do your own thing. You put your own spin on it. I don't want to overly influence you. So it's quite encouraging when you get someone trusting you with their songs. And I think just having that care in it is what ends up sort of powering it and getting me through it, is that I am taking good care of this song that somebody's entrusted to me.
Yeah. That's special. Yeah. Can imagine. Yeah. Um, it sounds like you're not ready with music as well. If you're saying you got an album coming up, you already said you cannot say too much about it. But I'm just curious, like, do you have any idea when people can expect that, since you already, you got your title track ready and things like that? Do you have an
I
idea
am
when?
hoping to have the first single out in September this year because that marks 20 years since my first album that I recorded on my own with a broken headset mic in the attic. So
Cool.
I would love to have that single out by September 2025. Um, but in terms of the rest of the album, the way that I'm working it is that rather than having singles and then an album, it's more like EPs and then an album.
Mm.
So, sort of extra songs that fit with that theme, instrumentals, and in the case of Stardust piano version, there is a Stardust original version.
Yeah, that was
Um,
my question. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, and that track is kind of like the last part of the story that I'm trying to tell in the album. So it's quite triumphant. It's a love song. It's very happy.
Yes, curious for that um, as well. Then, is there, if you think about your work for the upcoming years, is there like some goal or dream you're working towards to, in the sense of like maybe that you really want to develop a certain skill, or maybe a location to perform, or like a collaboration with someone you would find really cool or inspiring?
I think at this stage, I'm trying to move away from collaboration just because I did quite a lot of it last year and I worked with some really cool people and did really interesting, weird things and I really enjoyed it. But I need to focus on get this album done. So
Mm.
that I'm going to be perhaps a little bit more insular this year. Um, and also I'd like to experiment more with tech. So there's ways of making visuals with there's a program called Touch Designer which does a lot of really interesting, just almost anything you can imagine you can make in Touch Designer, that
Mm.
respond to audio and things like that, which would be really cool.
Mm.
So I'd like to get more into kind of visuals in that kind of techie mathematical sense. But I'd also like to make music videos. I do have some ideas about what I want to do. Um, so yeah, just to have that freedom of let's make some cool stuff to look at while you're hearing my song.
Yeah, that's cool. It sounds like, again, like expanding on the voice that you are putting out there, um, and you're now doing that in your album more in your own way, shaping that, and it feels like you're then already looking at how can I make my voice heard also visually, kind of. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Um, why did you decide to make the piano version for the other track? Because it feels like if you say the other is quite different, how did you come up with making a piano version for it?
Well, I do this thing every year. It's kind of like a little music retreat, where I go
Mm.
and visit my friend in Nottingham, and he has a piano and a double bass and various instruments in his living room, and a nice set of speakers that I can test my mixes on. And I'll go down there, and I'll usually make something while I'm there. One year I wrote a jazz song. One year I recorded a music video. And then this last year, I just felt the need to make a piano version of this existing song that I was working on. Um, and I just recorded it on my phone. Like it wasn't like this nice mic here. So that had its own problems. But yeah, I made a piano recording and I also recorded some things like he has some angle poised lamps that have like that metal lampshade and you go ding.
Mm.
And so some
Oh.
of that's in there. And also, while I was down there, I decided to visit Birmingham, which is a big city quite close to Nottingham. Or at least it's within a train ride, but a much closer train ride than I live in the north of England. So, yeah, I went to visit there. And on my way home, I was in New Street Station, which is like the biggest train station in Birmingham. And the engines of the trains all sang in this B flat major triad. It was like,
Mm.
like this angel choir of engines. And I was like, I'm
Mm.
recording this. So I recorded it on my phone. And then when I got
That's
home with my
cool.
piano recordings and my lamp and this train recording, it was only a semitone out. So the song is in A major and this triad was a B flat major. So I just went, ah. And
And
now
fixed.
it's in the song as like a little build. It's not hugely noticeable, but it is this chord and this texture, and you can hear people walking around. So it was just like we were talking about. It's just a joyful thing to play the piano, something like to arrange what's actually an electronic song into a piano song, and to have these sounds that you found when you were out having fun somewhere. And then I just recorded the vocals very much like this. I was sitting here.
That's
Um,
so cool.
and recorded them. So yeah, it was very much like having been in the very technical space of electronic music and getting it right and going into the let's just make some recordings on my phone. Let's just do a fun version.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah. I love the going out in the real world and recording stuff with like the word field recording is so like fancy then because you really just need an iPhone is what you kind of prove with
Yeah.
it. Um, but it adds so much like liveliness and humanity and stuff, which sometimes is difficult if you're just maybe in a computer kind of thing. Yeah. Uh, that's cool. I want to listen to it, but before we dive into the track and end the episode almost, I am curious if you have one tip that everyone can use quite easily or implement in their lives to reduce their footprint a bit or leave the earth not worse or maybe even a bit better than found.
Yeah, there's one thing I do it's saved a lot on the amount of plastic bottles that I'm, throwing away. I use shampoo bars. So I've got some that have lasted me like 7 or 8 years that are just coming to the
Wow.
end now. And also when I buy uh, conditioner, I try to get either the biggest bottle or find somewhere that does refills. Now, there's not so many places in my area that do eco refills at the moment, but there are in most towns now, like a place where you can top up your the kind of cleaning fluids you might use or whatever. So yeah, just being more aware of what packaging you're using, how much you're throwing away, just to reduce landfill, reduce the amount of supposed recycling that this country does, where we essentially sell on things to other countries, so it doesn't really work very well. So if you can reduce the amount of
Yeah.
things you're throwing away, that's far better.
Yeah. That's a good one. Thank you for sharing that indeed. And I also want to kind of call it a day for the episode. At the end of the episode, we'll listen to Stardust, the piano version. But I want to massively thank you for being up for the chat and for anyone watching or listening for tuning in. If you want to discover more about Lucid Letters and our work, then make sure to check the description of this video or podcast because we collect all the links there. So then you can check out where Lucid Letters is still able to be found in the social networks. Also, if you have any questions, either for Lucid Letters or for us, then just leave them in the comments or on our socials, and then we'll try to get them answered for you. Besides that, if you care about Planet Earth and you like the videos, then make sure to give us a follow because it's free. It's 2 clicks and we restore 1 square meter of ecosystem for every new follower. So it really has an impact and the Earth will thank you. For now, thank you once more, Lucid Letters. I
Thank you for
really
having me.
enjoyed the talk. We'll be in touch soon and let's have a listen to Stardust, the piano version.
Your embrace is a journey through deep space, dissolving like a cadence resolving, and stardust revolving in rings around our body.